right, and the next day up can mean down whenever I feel like it, and that could be a problem. Like, how do you how do you and others will come to terms in a way in communicating when your meaning is whatever you want it to be at any given time, so you can't build a society on that, because you have to have some type of
Well, Nivek,
mutual
yeah.
understanding between the two of you
But
in order to communicate.
you can build societies on the principles of science. As we've seen, like for understanding what is going on in reality, and then someone they just presuppose the validity of the objective moral standard of God. Then they can just do that, and still they can kind of find some balance with science, so long as when they're talking about some element that requires faith, they can just say faith for that thing. So I mean, it's just all I'm saying, Nivek, is
I
that
get what you're saying. You can have a little bit of belief in
yeah,
in the reality that you're in.
but you're right about
Not you
like
can't have
faith.
too much. You
Faith
can't
needs
have
to
too much
be
delusion, though.
yeah,
You
yeah.
have to have
No,
just the right amount.
you need to keep faith out of the the classroom, so to speak. Like you don't want it there. You don't want it there getting in the way of us building a working germ theory of disease, a working standard model of particle physics. Like we want to have objective standards for those things. Are you seeing Kevin in the caller queue, Nivek?
Oh,
I was just wondering if you're seeing.
okay. Let me see how it goes. Okay.
Yeah, make sure you're keeping
Okay.
an
Yeah.
eye on
There.
the
Yeah.
callers. Yeah. How's it going, Kevin?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good.
I'm fine, thanks. What you got
All
for
right.
us is good, evil, subjective, or objective?
Yeah. So I'm. Well, I guess all Trav knows me, but for anybody who doesn't, I'm coming in as an atheist, so I don't have the faith problem there. I'm kind of trying to figure this out myself, and how morality fits into my naturalistic worldview. So, what do you think about kind of morality being a more of a kind of, it's neither objective nor subjective, but more of a normative kind of concept?
I kind
Right.
of get
So
where you're
it,
coming
it's
from.
it's subjective to humans and individuals for certain, and then societies as a whole. So there are objectively moral norms which societies uphold, right? And so that indicates a group of humans.
But
So that's different
we
than,
naturally evolved for the interest of our well-being. It's a natural inherent thing, and where
well, but
you're
different people have a
designed
different
through evolution to want to
interpretation of
take care
what
of yourself.
well-being is. So that can't be truly objective.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, there
Kevin,
there are.
Sorry, say that
Kevin,
again.
so but the well-being, that moral well-being is talk about is the balance between functionality and feeling well. That's what people like Sam Harris, myself, are referencing. If someone means something else by well-being, that's not what we're referencing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree that. Okay, so then there's two different levels, though. I think objectively, functionality is necessary. We would not survive if we could not function, right? So that's kind of self-indicating there.
Yeah, but that's not
But
objectively
on the
moral.
subjective level,
Like it's not objectively good or bad. You have to pick a subjective metric first, the well-being metric, and then say from a perspective of well-being that would be bad.
Oh, you're saying that it's subjective, Travis?
No,
You have to
it's
you have to have a
subjective.
choice.
Well, Nivek, you have to, if when we're talking about making a value judgment, right? Whether something's good or right or wrong. Like I was saying before, religious people are the ones who claim that they have found the objective moral standard, right? They have the object. They get it from their book. They get it, which claims to be divinely inspired. That's their
Well,
object.
they make a claim. They don't prove. They don't like prove it.
No, I'm saying what they do. I'm not talking about the validity of it. They say that they have it here and they believe that this is the objective moral standard. So
How do they
so
explain it?
that well, don't ask me. That's up to the religious people to answer. But I'm just saying that's what it means. So that you can point at someone and say it is objectively wrong, to kick that little girl. People will say that they'll be like, it's objectively wrong. And then if you say, by what standard, what you found the objective moral standard, show it to me. And then if they show me their holy book or whatever, then I'm going to be like, this seems to be something that mankind made up. So then it's subjective.
Yes, they'll take meaning from that holy book, but you can interpret meaning from many holy books. With
Yeah, but that doesn't really have
you
to do
interpret
with morality, what we're talking about, though.
No, I'm just saying, like, with reality, with objective reality, you could take in information of what's factually there and come to a conclusion of the benefit of your well-being. With a person that's saying what they're saying out of your head, you drink the mad raccoon piss juice because God said so. Just because God said so, that doesn't necessarily mean that is that it's objective, and it
Yeah,
doesn't really mean that you're not taking any true meaning, because that meaning is subjective as well, because any other
yeah,
person
but
with their
you don't
holy
have to
book can
say
say
true.
something else.
Yeah. It depends on how you use meaning, Nivek. You're opening up a lot of can of worms there.
I'm sorry.
Like
Yeah,
meaning.
we're trying to draw from a source here. I think is what we're looking for, right? What would be a
Yeah,
source
yeah.
for the morality?
Well, if someone, yeah. So we're really just talking about, and let's not try to, gish gallop and overcomplicate things. We're talking about if you see, like I used the example, if you see someone just randomly walk up to a child and kick them, how do you know that it's good, or how do you know that it's bad? And then we go to the ultimate bad, which we conceptualize as evil.
Okay, I'll play out the scenario. Why'd you get the kid? God told me to, and it's a good.
Well, yeah, there you go.
How is it
Exactly. And then you would ask someone, if someone kicks the kid
Yeah.
and says, no, it's good. It says so in this book here. I know it's good because God told me it's in this book. Then to them, phenomenologically, to them, in their experience, they're going to say, oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it has to be good because it's from God, right? Like they've presupposed that it is from God. But yeah, you can argue with them and say like, well, I think that's all that stuff you're referencing was just made up and written down by human beings.
No, that's not what I would ask. I
Well,
want to get a standard from that person in what is beneficial. How is things beneficial to them? I'd say, is the beneficial of well-being, is your health and the health of others, and I try to establish a framework on what something is with that person and see if it clashes with what they did, because if you're saying that, my well-being is not causing pain and harm to others, and also do what God say, that could be a problem, because if you're saying that you believe in this over here and you're very religious and God is telling you to do the opposite, that's a problem. And I'd ask him, I'd first get a suss the person out and finding out what are their moral standards, and if there's if they're measuring standards of like more harm or less
Yeah, but
harm
they've already
and
told you,
destruction.
Nivek, you're asking them to read the mind of God. They've already told you that they have the object of morality right there. And then you're saying, I want to ask them to see, like, what they think about destruction, things like that. No, they are subservient to the objective moral standard that they believe is from God. There is no reasoning it. You're
Okay, so
asking them
if you're doing something opposite of that, don't you think that's a issue? So if
what?
you're saying God tells you to turn left and you turn right, I'm not. I wouldn't it be a reasonable question to ask him why did he do that?
Yeah, I mean, people will ask things like that, but you're going to come across the people that say, "Oh no, you'll never really know why, because it's God's mind, and you'll never know God's mind. Just
Oh,
follow the
okay.
rules," is what they would say.
That's weird as fuck.
Sure,
I
yeah.
mean, like if God is telling you to go up and you go down, and He's telling you to go right and you go left, and it's like, well, hey, wait a minute there. I mean, isn't that contract? I mean, like how?
So okay, basic definition of evil, and I want to get to this because this is an important thing. Basic, just something that is so moral, it just like it's shocking to you. It's profound.
Yeah, I
So
see good and evil as being kind of like falsely equivalent in that way. Like good could be like just okay, but evil is like really, really friggin' bad like all the time.
yeah, so Kevin, what is your moral metric that you would use to measure whether an act was evil or bad?
Well, I would say evil would have to be the worst possible bad, or like the worst
No, no, I'm
possible
talking about
harm.
you,
Right?
Kevin. I'm talking about you, Kevin. Like if you, like try to imagine something that you think was or is evil, and try
Well, like
to
an actual
understand
example.
why it made the level of, and try to describe your morality as you're going through this.
Do you mean like something that I've done, or just like an
No, just
example of
just
something of the way
anything. Yeah, it can be a hypothetical. It can be anything.
well, I'd say like one of the worst evils you could think is like somebody like a serial rapist, not somebody who just commits a rape once or twice or something, but who
Okay.
goes out and does that type of thing repeatedly. And there's various examples of that.
Now let's
That person clearly has no regard for harming others, and so that kind of denotes evil behavior to me.
Okay, so let's
But I
back
don't
end
believe that
let's
person.
let's back engineer that. Why is that mass rape evil?
Because it shows disregard for the well-being or the doing of harm to others.
Oh, okay. So you are a
Where
moral well-being as you use well-being as a metric. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
I do, but it's in direct proportion to the intention and the mindset of the person doing it. Like they say, maybe that person has a legitimate mental defect, and I believe that must be true of anybody who would do that, right? And so, in theory, we should be able to correct for that defect. We just have to find out where that lies.
So you do so
That
you do
that
believe
mental
that
defect.
so you believe that individuals can be evil, not just ideas or
No, I don't believe the person would be evil. I believe their
okay.
action would be evil.
Yeah, I I
Uh,
I agree with you on that. Yeah.
So you believe in the word evil and good and and okay, so evil evil and good and okay, what's the opposite of evil? I guess it would be good. I'm
I would
thinking
think the
of
opposite
I'm
of evil
thinking
would be
of
more like great, or I don't know, something exceedingly good. Like because evil is really exceedingly bad. Because people can do good and bad things, but not be good or evil people, right? It comes down to kind of this um, the collection of their actions, behaviors over over their lifespan. You know.
So evil and good, and a benefit and a loss. You think that there's
Um,
a difference between those two terms? Because, I mean, evil and good,
I see that
how
as
would you
being
necessarily.
relative, though, and I think that could be a good argument for moral relativism if you were to go that way, because to say that the evil act is still a benefit to the person committing the act, that's why they would do it. But again, that problem is a defect within that individual. That's why it would be relative in that sense. That's kind of why we're starting from where I was starting from, where if you have two, if you literally just have two individuals, then morality is truly relative. It's only in these kind of large collectives that we can have these deeper understandings of what these right and wrong actions do and how they accumulate. You know what I mean? Because if I kill you and there's nobody else to know about it, then who's to judge what was good and evil?
You think evil and good can
It's only
be
in light of it
subjective?
affecting another person.
You think evil and good can be subjective, and there could be words that are substitute for evil and good, that are objective.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a false dichotomy in terms of what we can generally colloquially consider to be good and evil, or what when we're talking, most people mean right and wrong. You know what I mean? But they also think of evil as being like the the ultimate evil, whereas they again we just think of good as being well, that's good, it's not great. You know,
But I'm saying like good
uh,
can be a benefit of well-being where you could measure, and and um and bad can be. I mean, like, yeah, evil can be a loss in well-being
well, you
that can be
could
measured.
say that, but I think it would be a stretch. I mean, I think good, yes, and bad, yes, but evil, no. In itself, I think it carries something else with it when we talk about evil, and generally we it's very much um,
You think
subjective within
morality is
humans.
subjective or objective?
Morality in itself, I well, I don't know. That's gonna be a tough one to answer. I think it is a construct. So as a construct, I don't think it's either objective or subjective. It's a human construct within social groups.
Well, um, you could say that uh, eating, drinking water, and eating, taking medicine for an illness that would help you uh, get over your sickness. That in taking a certain amount of it, and drinking water, and taking in certain nutrients of fruits and vegetables
I
of
think
your
I know where
health.
you're going. I mean, yes,
You can say that is objectively good because.
right. If they're beneficial, they are good for us, and we know that. However, I don't think the antithesis to that would be not doing those things that are good for you would not necessarily be evil, right? It might not be good for you. It might even be bad for you, but it would not be evil. Would not be the same as depriving someone else of the right to to have those same things. You know what I mean? That would be evil.
Well, doing something that would be the opposite, that would be the degeneration, to degradation of your body, in
But what's immoral about
in
degrading
affecting
your own body?
in affecting your body in a negative way. You can potentially equate that to evil, right?
Right? But if it doesn't, can it really be immoral if it's not negatively impacting others. Like if you're just doing something to yourself, like you guys were talking about drug use earlier, and it's a well, yeah, there's all these other people external to you who may be hurt by the fact that you would do that to yourself, but at the same time, to the drug user, you're not harming another person. And I, as an autonomous being, have the right, the moral authority to do as I wish with my body, right? So that would be the argument there, and the same applies here. If you choose to let your own health be degraded, that's entirely your um, your moral right to do so, I believe.
Yeah, but
But
most
if you were
most beings
to
don't do
force
that.
that upon another, then you're being immoral.
Most beings don't do that. They do what they can that is beneficial to themselves based on objective reality. Like if you think you're doing something based that's good for you because you feel it, that's just you that's just your imagination saying that this is good regardless, right? But if you get enough understanding, you learn like the nutrition of value of what you're taking and medicines and how it could benefit you. These objective things that exist in reality, you could come to a conclusion of utilizing those things in a beneficial way for yourself.
Well, one might, but there are plenty of people who know full well the consequences of their actions and do so anyway for whatever reason that it they feel that it benefits them, right? Even if it's like a negative physical impact,
I
but it
think
has
we're
some
naturally
positive
self-destructive.
psychological impact.
You know what, you're right. We're all naturally self-destructive because anything you do, it could be potentially bad in relation to what you can do better, right? Everything is
Right.
to degrees, and people, they do things that they that are destructive, and it's kind of like, you could say, well, it's subjective of what they want to do, but a lot of that is based off of their ignorance. And if and you know
Yeah,
and
and
if they would
the
have, could have,
mind is
should have
also
know more, and they could have reasoned things out better, then of taking objective fact, then they probably would have gone about it a better way.
our minds are so impressionable, and that's really a thing that we only know now with the more modern neuroscience and psychology and stuff like. So what we could never have known was like the impact that that uh, corporal physical punishment had on children,
Hmm.
whereas parents would have thought at a young age, well, this is how I teach them, effectively because it seemed to work, and not
Hmm.
understanding how that perpetuates habitual violence, things like that. Whereas
The
now
issue
we've
the issue I
learned
have
really
with
to fine tune that.
the issue I have with your view in subjective of, hey, well, in a person doing what they want subjectively, be human beings amongst each other, they communicate. And if I want to think what I want to think, and another person thinks what they want to think, you're going to have a clash of meaning. And I'm not going to agree with your meaning because whatever I want to think, which is whatever, and whatever you want to think, which is whatever, you're going to have an issue in establishing meaning. So it would be about me imposing my will on you, on this being the way. You are to believe this, and if you don't, then you'll suffer the wrath of God, which will be by my hand.
Yeah, well, and I agree, and I really cannot much defend a theological argument on that, other than saying the only way that I could see them really creating that loophole, and I've heard this before, obviously, is that to say that, well, God has some plan, and this all fits into a plan that we simply don't understand, which is not an explanation. So doesn't satisfy me at all. But that's the
Oh
only
yeah, I
one that
forgot you're
really
not religious.
has, no, no, yeah. But it is true. I still can't fit that objective moral framework into my naturalistic worldview, and I'm trying to work all the finer points of that out.
Well, there's some similarities with
One
religious and
thing you brought up,
biases.
more about religious biases.
No, I'm saying there's some similarity in religious and in a person's subjective bias.
Oh yeah, well yeah. I mean, for example, like I could bring one up as far as what is generally considered objectively bad in most societies now is like well what's what we call inbreeding, and that's like known to be any close familial relations, right? Where like we know there's like a certain level of relatedness and where it's okay as long as you're not doing it successively over generations and stuff like that. But we still say, no, we're not going to do that. Like kissing cousins is a good example, where many first cousins might successfully procreate together, but it's really shunned in society. It's considered moral evil because we had generations of really close inbreeding that caused a lot of harm. So.
And you think like the inbreeding, it was subjective.
Well, I think it had objectively harmful results in its time, but we also didn't understand genetics at that time. So now that we understand genetics, we know, okay, well, there is some kind of tolerable level to this, but yet in society, we still just say no.
And that's right, because we objectively didn't understand genetics. People in the past thought to the subject of inherent supremacy and inherent morals and values, and in reasoning and in being superior, and where, well, hell, if that's anointed by God to me, then as a monarch, it would make sense if I screwed my sister and had super kids. But
Yeah, yeah,
you're
or
lacking in
like
you're
your
lacking in
very
understanding.
young niece, just because you wanted to, like that was really more often the way it broke down. I mean, sadly, for a lot of those cases, like they had established these traditions, but
But that was
once
subjective
the
morality.
well, oh yeah, yeah, it's definitely a subjective sense of morality, and they were also kind of openly
Oh,
hypocritical about it. I mean,
sorry
you
about
still
that. I
see that a
dropped
lot,
out.
like
My phone was ringing. I hate that. I should have put my ring.
no
I
big. I don't know if my mic's entirely up. Got this earpiece in.
Yeah, that subjective morality way of thinking had people do incest and
Well, I mean,
based off of
so it's
objective
in
reality
reality,
in
it's not a moral question. I mean, the moral question about incest is more into like issues like consent and whether somebody is properly informed about what they're doing and what the potential harms and things are of that, right? Like the hazards, just like any other sexual act, right? So incest isn't much of a moral question insofar as that goes. As long as you have two consenting adults, it's like any other form of sex, right? And it becomes a scientific issue. Well, if I breed with this person, are we going to have some adverse effect in the gene pool
but
or
first
what
you'll talk
have
to that person. Do
you?
you care about well-being of yourself, your family, others, right? And you're getting the standards down, and you want to get like the measuring degree of negative effects. And once that is established, you know, you see how you relate, you compare that to how they're going about things in reality. So it's like you say you care about this, but you're doing that over there that contradicts what you're trying to achieve. So you care about the well-being of yourself, others, your family especially, and you're going to end up having, you're going to think that as a father, as soon as you have a daughter, you have incest with them. Then you're going to have kids that have issues.
Well, there's no
and
reason
and
to
and and
jump to
and
that
and and, 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 and
conclusion,
so
but
so so
I
like
mean,
your
you're
goal
talking.
your goal of well-being is being contradicted by that act, because you want the well-being for your kid, but by you screwing your daughter, you're not going to really, have all the best for your kid. You're actually doing the child a disservice by bringing them to earth. And
Well, yeah, I think that's why I was trying to say that it wasn't, in relation to pedophilia and stuff like that. I'm talking about when you have consenting adult peoples who are informed about the potential
oh, I get what
consequences
you're
for whatever
saying.
their actions.
They're not
Yeah,
trying to
I wouldn't
procreate.
extend beyond that. Well, no, I would say there are situations where it might be viable, but I'm just saying it's not necessarily a moral decision in that sense. I mean, the child's life then becomes a secondary moral decision, but just the act of the sex act itself is not really a moral dilemma in my mind, as long as those conditions are met.
What do you think about chaos and order?
I think they go hand in hand, and one is impossible without the other. But I can't really prove that. I like to listen to physicists talk, really smart about numbers and stuff.
Yeah, I kind of have the same viewpoint with it. I think it is about its relationship to the environment, and they're neither one or the other. It's about um, compatibility, in where, based on the changes of the environment, whatever's happening, whatever anomaly is happening through the randomness of chaos, the potential of of the randomness that's there, it could become compatible with the changes of the environment, and now turn to order, and whatever what was order based off of the changes of the environment, it's no longer sustainable in adapting to that environment. It breaks down into chaos.
Yeah, I think that's a very eloquent way of explaining it. And I think in a way it relates to the way I see our morality. In that we kind of have
Yeah,
this complex system and it's disorderly. And the only way we really start to make sense of it and build upon it
that's
is
how I
by
see it too.
establishing laws.
I see the
And it's kind of like
relationship
the
with
law
it.
of
I
physics.
think that you want order with yourself, others, the environment, and other animals in symbiosis. You know, of sustainability, because it's not really separate. People like to think that they're their island and they're separate, but really they're part of a system. They're part of a balance, you know. And something happening to one thing could have a cause and effect to you.
I think that seems to be one of the big problems with religious uh, people, in my experience. Uh, they always correlate like any random event to a plan, and that was kind of part of that whole like divine order argument or whatever it is, where it's like just anything could happen. You get into a car accident tomorrow, and it's never just stuff happens. They're always like, well, it's part of God's plan, or the devil did this to me today, and that's really like where their mentality gets warped and their morality, because then people like you and me are demons over here casting spells because we don't agree with the Bible or something, and it ways. Like,
Yeah, that's interesting when you mention God's plan. If something happened, I guess it's just that it can't be explained, and that's the way of explaining it. So, if it's beyond your understanding and the repercussions of your acts, it led to this outcome. I guess that was God that it rids you of responsibility in a way
yeah, it's either God
and
or
accountability.
demons.
Yeah, yeah. I guess if it's too bad and it's too too atrocious, I guess that's where the devil would fit in, and you just blame him.
The devil
It's a
made it
good
for
deal,
you.
right? You don't have to take no responsibility.
Oh yeah, for sure. And if you do anything wrong, you can always just pray and be forgiven. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I see you guys got
Or
another
you go after
caller.
another person and you say that that person is connected that's a witch and they're connected to the devil. And
For sure.
you get rid of you kill a person for something that you caused and you're good.
Yeah, righteous kill. Righteous kill. I love those ones. They're my favorite. Uh, but yeah, I don't want to keep you. You got somebody else on the
Okay.
line and stuff.
Okay.
Good talking.
All right. Take care.
All right. Thanks, man.
Hey Lance, how are you doing?
Hey, Nivek, how's it going? I don't have much to say. The good news, all subjective, but great show last night on PBS, talking about
Okay.
Alex and the brain and how we think and the intelligence of peas and all that. But one of the things that they talked about, I've never heard anybody express this idea of God. I'll just throw this at you, see what you think. Because I decided I believe in God like a bunch of years ago, and that's about it. Just because they can't explain what happened before the Big Bang, and scientists don't know. So yeah, I believe in God. Then I kept thinking about, well, what is it? What's God though? What do I believe? If I believe God exists, and I thought, what are the qualities that God would have to have when you strip it away from all the organized religion? He existed a lot long if he, she, it, this entity existed long before organized religion. So what's the entity that the qualities it must have, right? I thought, well, it's got to be universal. And if there's multi universes, I don't know, does that mean more than one God? But to keep it simple, one God's got to be kind of, more or less. I think he has to be kind of permeate the entire universe. He can't just be in part of it, and so he has to be kind of omniscient or be everywhere. But then I thought to be omnipresent, but does he have to know everything? He, she, it, this entity. And I thought, why? Why would it have to? Maybe the Big Bang was just this energy, this thing, this God, which is
Why
the
do you think he
universe.
has to know everything?
No, I don't. I don't. That wasn't one of the qualities I thought that necessarily would be something that, like, if there's a monotheism and one God, well, that means he would have to, like I said, encompass the entire universe, and it would have to permeate, everything. So yeah, it would have to have certain qualities. It would have to connect things, whatever. But yeah, no, I didn't think that God would have to know everything. And so yeah, and it explains suffering, and it explains a lot of things that maybe this Big Bang was just this force, this thing was there, just in its own, in God's own consciousness. Couldn't just finally figured it out, and then boom, and that was the best he could do. It explains suffering, it explains disease, because it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, gases, they will form. It'll get rocks, and then you'll have plasma, then you'll have this, then you'll have fire. It'll cool down, and then you'll have life. Maybe he could see only so far, and this is the best he could do. So I don't know. I think that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, I think like God represents the unknown, and people naturally fear the unknown. And by fearing the unknown, you describe it as all powerful and all knowing, right? And by being all powerful, all knowing, you're to fear it. Otherwise, you get its wrath, which is kind of true if you don't understand reality around you, right? You get its wrath, no?
Yeah,
And
right.
you better be able to in order to adapt, or you suffer nasty consequences in extracting meaning. So it's like a God is a metaphor for the unknown in people's natural instinct of wanting to know, but not able to. So he's substitute for that. And that substitution in where there's too much of a knowledge gap and there's too much of a logic gap of understanding of things that are complex, your meaning would just be brought from God, right? He's prescribed the meaning. And
Well,
then
yeah,
you're and then you're good and all everybody has to do is to conform to that. And they're good. And anybody who argues otherwise, we just kill him.
right. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think um, yeah, we have pretty high expectations for the guy. I think he did pretty good. If there is a
I
no,
think I think in a way, I think like what I was saying, it it's like he does exist, but in a metaphorical way as well.
well, another thing though is that we think that like, and
We
I
will
just
always fear the unknown, right? And there'd always
yeah,
be the unknown, so there'd always be God, because he represents the unknown, and the unknown will be powerful, right? Because anything that you're interacting with, you suffer the consequences of not understanding it and identifying it for what it is, and therefore not having idea to manage it in a rational way. So you're to fear that. You're to fear that unknown, which is God, the metaphor for the unknown. That's my assumption. That's I mean,
yeah, that makes
I,
sense of why a lot of people have this God who's like vindictive and all that stuff, like the Old Testament God. Yeah, yeah, yeah. A lot of that. I think that's a lot of it.
yeah, I was always trying to understand the psychology. So that's my viewpoint, and when you kind of think of it, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, that's what I think people do. You know, it's this big bad God out there, and you know, yeah, it's an interesting topic. But the other thing I don't see, and I'm not never good at science, but just reading about Neil deGrasse, Tyson, or and he's pop culture. I mean, I know he's probably pretty smart, but Bill Nye's now working for like the plastics industry, so who knows what these people really are about. But I mean, even deeper thinking people here and there, and you just listen to it all, and I don't know, as advanced as science is getting, and the way they can map out the brain now and the genome and all. I haven't heard anybody say, "Yeah, boy, we're pretty close to understanding that there couldn't be no God." It's almost like it seems more and more likely there is. It just seems like the vastness of the things we don't know and the complexities of the things
But
that we
whatever
think.
you know, there'd always be an unknown, and that unknown would represent God.
Well, just maybe to some. That's not. I think that you could say that God is everything we know, not what's unknown. Well, what's unknown, right? Dark matter. Well, that's out in the universe. Rocks. Dark matter doesn't hit me over the head, but it's pretty important, right? But a rock I feel more, so maybe one seems more. So yeah, one's known and one's unknown, but it's there.
But people who are religious talk against the unknown. Where when
Right,
people mention science, they say, well, it's more God's more than that, and it's
right.
like
But I was
you're
speaking of
using these things that you're pointing out. God is just way more than that. It's undescribable, though.
right to religious people. I'm just trying to think, like more outside the box of what if there's a God. It's not like that, It's yeah, but no, what you're saying makes perfect sense in terms of how a lot of religious folks and various religions perceive of God, But it, you know, yeah, but
You think good and evil is
good and evil. That's an
a
interesting thing. I think.
is a metaphor for chaos? Yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, let me ask you. So again, to try to define the terms, is a plague evil, or is evil something that is like it's got to be like it's evil because people did bad things to other people or to the world, like or
Well,
to
the
the earth,
plague can potentially be good.
huh?
The plague
Plague,
can potentially be good.
not to
It's
the
like,
to half the population of Europe that was killed from it. They don't think it was so good.
okay.
No,
But my point,
no.
my point is, when you're managing something, if you have understanding, you could deal with it in a beneficial, potentially beneficial way based off of your understanding of it and where it's relative, right? If you go about, if you have a lack of understanding in whatever you're engaging with, it could end up catastrophic for you. Like if I see this clear liquid on the table and it's like and I just down it and it's gasoline, you know, that
Well,
that's bad for me, right? But
yeah,
gasoline can be good based off of my understanding of it.
Right.
You
Okay.
know
But
what I
like,
mean?
okay, right,
So
like,
I'm saying like if you took a caveman and you brought him in today's time, they saw a car. It was like a big. It'll be a big monster, and it's got a hood, and it's got a wide mouth, and it's evil, and I'm to spear it, and I'm to throw stones at it, you know,
right, right,
and
right, right,
attack it. But to us, it's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? You
right.
know, you just
But what
destroyed
I'm
my
saying is,
car.
right. But what I'm asking is, I got you. Right, exactly. But like an earthquake, a volcano that kills like
Uh,
tens of thousands of people, are those types of things, evil, or is it that's ridiculous? Because no, evil means it's people doing stuff to the environment, or that it's something that like lions aren't evil because they eat a zebra or something. They're just living the zebra lion ecosystem life. But I mean, so can things that are inanimate be evil? Like, you know what I mean? Like, can an earth? Is it?
yeah, I understand you. Something like that, like a large event like that, that's really like beyond a human being's capability of managing. Um, it's a
That
it,
means it's not good.
yeah.
So is that evil? You know what I mean?
Um,
Gotcha.
well,
No,
I'm
this is
not
the
really
thing. I
sure
don't.
what it is.
I mean, I have an opinion, but these are the questions that gets where it gets interesting,
Well,
man.
yeah. I can say I can say it's evil because evil could be a metaphor for bad.
Okay, now it's also the case that, in fact, it's predicted that there might be an eastern, like in the Appalachians, somewhere East Coast, earthquake.
But a earthquake could like something natural can happen in a way that is good. So I mean, like
That's what I was going to get to.
you can point out
Right,
something in nature and say, oh, that's evil. But I mean, like it depends how it works out, right?
right, right, right. And so volcanoes, I don't know about volcanoes. Probably there's some, release of some energy that needs to get released. But yes, yes, yes. That was going to be my
So
point.
if we
Earthquake,
without
you don't
volcanoes
have.
we wouldn't have land, right?
Well, no, yeah, yeah, but yeah, no, no, because I'm just to flesh the point out that we're talking about to see we're on the same page. Yeah, I think you're seeing the point, which an earthquake, even medium-sized ones, are necessary because if you don't have any, eventually you're going to have one really huge one, and it could be like really cataclysmic for a much larger portion of the planet. It's just bad luck if the earthquakes happen where people are instead of where if it happens in the middle of the ocean, it may be a tsunami we can plan for, whatever, whatever, whatever. Yeah, so and the other thing is about like that's why I was mentioning plagues. You say, yeah, okay, they're kind of evil, they're kind of bad, but how do we cure them? Right? We put a little bit of the vaccine into your blood, right? Earthquakes, hopefully they happen where there's not people, but are necessary, even though they're not good when that so they can be very, very horrible, but they are necessary. So I think it's always the yin yang thing as far as good and evil. Like for instance, well, okay, Hitler was evil, right? Clara Barton, who started the Red Cross, went out in the field and risked her life to help, in disease and gunshot to help soldiers. She was pretty much all good. Mother Teresa's a different story, but Clara Barton pretty much all good. Hitler was evil, right? We could all agree on that.
Yeah.
But what happened? How did Hitler? He didn't come out of a vacuum. Did not. He wasn't just so clever to amass an army of 1 million people and then storm the Capitol. He got elected. So in other words, it was the feckless, like ridiculous corruption, and just first of all, they underestimated him and his parties. That whole element after World War One, we helped crush them, the West, the victors in World War One. We said, yeah, we're gonna strip Germany and Japan of like for charging billions of dollars, for the war because they lost and we won, spoils or whatever of war. And we learned that didn't work too good. That helped crush them. And so for all these reasons that were done by
the good guys, the Allies, for helping to crush Germany and Japan after World War One, and they're the best way to go in the world. Who just fuck things up, and the good Allies, right? Of course, that's one of those quote unquote good wars. I truly believe it. I'm not a pacifist. World War II was needed to be fought, but Hitler was created by actions taken by the good guys of World War II and the good guys economically that were supposedly the party of the masses and the people. So, and they created it.
Yeah, I guess
So,
Hitler was a good guy going about thing a bad way, and where he thought it was good way of going about things, but
well,
you're destroying, you're ending a lot of lives in going about doing it, and you're engaging in this with this Aryan supremacy mumbo jumbo BS,
right,
in
right,
racial order. It's like, no, man, that's not a good thing.
right. But I guess the idea is, with all these, the good guys in World War II who learned their lesson in World War One, and but they didn't learn it soon enough. So the good guys helped create Hitler. It's almost like he's the hell, but the path to hell is paved with good intentions, as they say.
Yeah, everybody massed together and took care of him.
Yeah, and you guys were talking about religion and all this stuff before too, but right, how much evil, right, was perpetrated by, I gotta say it, my good old Catholic Church. I'm not a Catholic anymore. I don't care, but plenty of religions besides Catholics, but with the Inquisition and the Crusades and all that crap, you know. So how much how much evil has been perpetrated by those who were totally doing God's work, and we're doing it because it's good, right? So
Yeah, they're just gonna come to the same page in what something is or what something isn't, because they're subjective in their thinking.
right.
What Putin? What do you think about Putin in Ukraine? You think at the end of the day he's a genius, and he's really, nobody really gets him, and he's really doing a good. Some people think that, and some people think that he's an evil bastard, and everybody's just rallying together, the global community to stop him from
Well,
imposing on others.
the invasion is totally wrong. It's a war crime. Of course, we have American presidents. The last 10 in a row probably that was guilty from Johnson with Vietnam, and Obama with Iraq and
Do you
Afghanistan.
think he might want a more
But
beneficial good for the world because he think Western imperialism is bad?
what Putin's doing? No, Putin's just a rank, hanger on at this point. He
Trust
was
me,
our
I'm not
guy.
a pro Putin guy. I'm just playing devil's advocate here.
No, 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 no. No, Putin was our choice, by the way. He was our guy. We said, yes, Putin, yes, he will be
There's
our
a lot
ally.
of people who love Putin, by the way, in the West.
I'm talking about like the people that were running the country. I'm talking about the State Department and the president in 2000. He took over right around 2000. He was our guy, just like Osama bin Laden was our guy. Remember, he was our ally. Osama bin Laden was, he came, he went, it was, his, it was the Mujahideen and the Taliban in Afghanistan that were fighting Russia, and since Russia, Cold War,
Yeah, we propped them up. It's different with Putin, though. I don't think we created Putin.
we
He's
totally
an
did.
old KGB relic.
No, we didn't pick him. We didn't choose him in like a coup or anything like that.
He
But
got
when
to where he is on his own.
yeah, but I'm just saying we totally supported him though, and said, yeah, he's our guy. And if we didn't want him, we might have been able at that point to do something about it because
Well, we could have gotten along with the guy if he didn't act like a jackass, potentially.
yeah, but see, here's the thing, Nivek, is that after the Cold War ended, okay, in 89, 90, and then right on the heels of that, you had Czechoslovakia, and all these people, split
Yeah,
off of the Soviets, right?
yeah.
Then you had the Berlin Wall. That didn't happen right away. That it happened pretty quick. But all when the Cold War stopped, was being dismantled, and a lot of these nukes were being reduced and all that stuff. And Reagan did some of that. They really did. Salt one, Salt two, and this is on the heels of that. With Bush, continued some of that stuff. And crucially, we made a promise, right, that we got two things, big things from Russia to is in terms of the Berlin Wall. The wall will come down, and we get all the information about the Stasi police state in East Germany. Go look Stasi state, East Germany, man. It was crazy. They drilled holes in everyone's walls to spy on them constantly and got everybody spying on everybody. It's the craziest thing. I'm telling you, it's crazier than anything you ever heard of. Stasi, East Germany was nuts. Anyway, I just read up on it in depth recently. Anyway, we got all that information and they took down the wall in return for no encroachment by the NATO past where it already was, past what would have been otherwise East Germany. The reason being, NATO was an answer to the Warsaw Pact. The Warsaw Pact was the NATO of the Soviets. So it was all of the countries they controlled in the world, right? And in the Cold War, the Warsaw Pact was the Russian, controlled NATO of them, Warsaw Pact, just like it was the United States, like all
So
these other.
it was the NATO versus Warsaw Pact, and NATO
No, but the
was
Warsaw Pact
look more favorable to the ex Soviet countries,
it
and
doesn't exist anymore, right? They disbanded,
than to Russia. I mean,
right? They disbanded Warsaw Pact, so it
what
doesn't.
Putin wanted was for those old Soviet states to lean towards Russia's sphere of influence, and plus, hey, we used to be kin, so of course you should do that. And then when he sees people leaning like, no, I don't want nothing to do with Russia and leaning away. I
Well,
mean,
think about
that's their choice. You can't be saying, "Hey, man, NATO, stop what you're doing." NATO's like, "Hey, we're not doing anything." It's like just because what we have over here, what we're cooking, it's good. Don't blame us. You do what you have to do over over there, and it's because it's a parallel comparison, and that's a good thing. I think like if you have two things and you want to know what's the best, it's good to have a parallel option. You know what I mean? And one was a better option of NATO than Russia, and people were just leaning away from Russia, and Russia was like blaming NATO, is saying, "Hey, you're encroaching." It's like, no, people are leaving. It's not us encroaching. We are defensive. We're not offensive, and I guess that's what Putin was trying to do, and he's actually not doing a bad job because he figured his tactic was pretty good because he did like a lot of the dysfunction in the West. He tried to stir up a lot of clashes within Western nations, and people were starting to lean towards Putin in a favorable way. And I never really understood that. And then when I saw Ukraine, it's like it all clicked to me. It's like, oh, that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to like have have a negative view towards the West for people to have a more favorable, influential view towards this leaning towards the sphere of Russia, and where he wants to have like puppets within this old Soviet, countries,
because
enter come in and lean towards and but I mean, like I thought like I thought like his view with the West is that he thinks that the West is evil and they do all the evil in the in that in the world, and he's gonna figure out a evil master not an evil he's gonna figure out a master plan to break it up and fracture it and have it tear have it go at each other, and where it'll be good for the world. I think is what he's thinking. I mean, I'm assuming that.
but Putin is just you know, it, they have the most nukes of any country besides us. They're a pretty big country. They do a lot of trade with a lot of countries, because they're big. They have some, people with money there. So they're not an insignificant country by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, but Putin, he's like in the top 10 of people that are important in the world, if that. So in other words, in terms of any threat to us, it's like Xi Jinping, those guys, China knows what the fuck they're doing. China's organized. Okay, so if you want to put Putin on a scale of what threat he could possibly
Yeah,
be,
China's way worse, but I'm just saying like
Putin's like a one. Yeah,
he
but
dicks around in
Putin,
Western countries
Putin's like
though.
a one. On a scale
I,
from
I,
1 to 10, he's a one.
I'm just saying he meddles like balls
So
deep
what?
in Western
Like,
countries.
he's a pimple on an elephant's ass, Nivek. He's not going anywhere. They're a dying petrol state. So when I say they buy stuff, it's only because they have oil. That's all they got, natural gas, and lots of it. No, they're a petrol state that has one commodity, and that's it. And when that's gone, or if if that goes up and down, that's why they go up and down worse than any other country. That's
You
why
don't
they have.
see a lot of the going back and forth. Russia funds both sides of the left and the right to duke it out with each other, and put a lot of pump a lot of disinformation. And yet, Russia's capable. I mean,
What in their
I
country?
get like Russia's not very wealthy, but Russia's very very capable
Of
as
doing what now?
in huh?
Of doing what? Capable of in their own country or here?
Causing within the West to cause disruption. I mean, like they're not like those. They're worse. They're worse than like Islamic radicals. Yeah, they chop off heads and they bathe in blood and they do very horrific, gore things. But with Russia, their capability is more dangerous than them. Even though than Islamic radicals, even though they act crazy.
Russia, this whole idea that they are somehow like so clever, or China or anybody that's gonna like propagandize Americans in a way that it's already happening, man.
Then why you
No, it's happening.
why then
It's happening. Wait a minute, it's happening by American media companies. It's not like it was 10 years ago, and 10 years ago was worse than it was 20 years ago. And I'm old enough to go way back to Walter Cronkite. Okay, it's different. There was a lot of
anyway.
stuff that we got.
Anyways,
There
we
was
were talking about good or bad. Is Putin good or bad?
well, he's bad. I mean, but he's not evil. How's that? Like he's not Hitler, that's for sure. But the thing is,
How is he bad?
because he invaded the country, and that's a no-no, and that's a war crime. He invaded Ukraine. That's just wrong. I don't know. So I mean, I'm not certainly going to defend Putin, but I will say again, just like the conditions were created by the Allies after World War One and the people in the left-wing socialists of Germany, they were in control before Hitler, and then in between you had the Weimar Republic, and then you had Hitler. Okay, so it was the socialists. It wasn't that were there before. It wasn't like so. Anyway, Hitler came from something, and Putin didn't act out of nowhere. The Warsaw Pact doesn't exist anymore. They dismantled it. So whatever you think of Russia and all that stuff, yeah, they are. They were much weakened after the Cold War, and that's just a fact. And so, other than the fact they have nukes, but that's besides the subject for another day. But so we kept encroaching and encroaching and encroaching. And there's Estonia, and there's Poland, and there's this country, and there's that country, and we keep adding all these countries that we told Russia we wouldn't, and that's why they feel they're back to the wall. So whatever you think of Putin, good or bad, it's a very natural thing for him to do what he's doing with Crimea and with at least East Ukraine. So it makes sense, and it doesn't mean he's Hitler, but it doesn't mean that he's George Washington or Teddy Roosevelt either.
Well, I remember with Ukraine, Putin was saying, "Promise me you won't bring him into the EU," and they told him to go to hell. Like
That's crazy.
we're not making any promises because if that's if they want to do that.
No, it's not. Ukraine's not going to ever. You know what Obama said? Now again, there's a live. This is what galls me about. Yeah, Biden and Ukraine, it's doing the right thing. He said, "Look, we don't have any strategic interest. Ukraine's this two-bit country that he didn't say two-bit.
So if you think
But
the
we
West
don't
did
have
something
any
bad, then
economic.
Putin is
We don't
good.
have any. We don't have any trade going with them. We don't have any. There's not strategically important like Israel or like even Saudi Arabia or some of the other allies in the Middle East or whatever. They don't mean anything to us. They mean everything to them. It's in their sphere of influence, just like the countries that are in our sphere of influence in this part of the hemisphere. That's just a reality that we just have to accept. And so it would be like saying we're going to go further with Taiwan, and we're going to just totally recognize Taiwan, and we're going to treat them as equal to China. That would be pretty disastrous. Well, that would be the right thing to do, though. Why shouldn't Taiwan, right? Sovereign country. That's never going to happen. Now, we support Taiwan. They're a very middle class to the extent, thriving whatever country. We'll protect that. We'll protect them of any kind of encroachment. It's kind of it's a trade-off. It's a neutrality. It's a stalemate, whatever you want to call it, with China. We let Taiwan be free, but we don't recognize them officially. We only recognize Red China since the 70s when we first recognized China. And that's just the way it is. it's a different situation, but it's a similar thing where it's a standoff. We accept it, but all of a sudden we're not going to do that in Ukraine. We're going to act like, no, I'm sorry, China. It would be like if we said to China, no, we're going to recognize them too, and we're going to have relationships with them that have the same traits or whatever the things that we now agreed to all these years to be able to have a coexistence with China in the world. We agreed to all those things with Taiwan. If we undid them, China would be pissed, and they would take whatever moves they had to if we encroached on agreements we made for decades. And that's what we did to Putin, and that's what we did to Russia, and that's why he's pissed, because we went back on our word on so many things that just made he said, "Fuck this," you know.
Okay, so he's
Especially,
not really a bad guy then.
well, yeah, he's a bad guy. He shouldn't have invaded Ukraine.
But
I'm
he
just
did it off
saying
of.
that.
You're saying that it was based off of our actions. We initiated the response to what he's.
Yeah. In other words, if we thought he was such a bad guy, why would we keep poking this crazy, dangerous dude over a country we have no reason to give a fuck about? You know why? Because we
Okay.
have to perpetuate war. Go look it up. I
So
got the
those are
good
that was
on
based
the
off of
internet.
our actions.
A great
Why he did
article, a
what he
great
did.
article in the last 2 days on the Intercept about how they deliberately they look for it, they seed it. That's what I mean about the control. Forget about the propaganda from abroad, Nivek. Right here at home, these people are giving them literal scripts to read. They don't even have to have scripts. They go on the show now. It's just different. The people that were the ones that were the CIA goons who did the torture shit are now CNN and MSNBC, like sitting there with the anchor people as experts. It's insane. That didn't used to happen. You just melted off into the sunset. If MacArthur got fired by Truman because you can't go against the commander in chief. He didn't start going on radio and going around I mean, maybe he did, but nobody listened to him. He's like, no, you were discredited. You're gone. Oliver North goes and gets all these jobs. It isn't just on Fox either. It's all over the liberal media. And they craft this. They don't want this to end. They need there to be more billions. And here's the thing, what's crazy is that these people do these like not shareholder meetings, but they do these talks with like the analysts to pump up their stock. These things aren't private. Okay. So all you got to do is listen to Raytheon, listen to these people. Yes, if this goes on longer, if there is no peace agreement, they say this stuff. They say exactly what's going to prolong the war, and they say yes, we foresee that for the next, and they word it in such a way that it sounds relatively bland, but it ain't. It's not like you and I couldn't understand it. So no, it's deliberately perpetuating war, deliberately poking Putin. It has nothing, zero, not even 1%. Okay, not even 1% is this about peace in Ukraine, the poor people of Ukraine. Who's a bad guy, and he wants to encroach. He wants to reconstruct the Soviet Union. Ain't happening. He ain't got it. It's just not going to happen. It's
How are
just
you
like,
so sure that he might not have done what he did anyways, regardless of what the West did? How are you sure?
because he didn't
Like
do it for all those years. Nothing changed. In other words, it wasn't like one sudden thing that we did. No, it just was inevitable. No, it was. In fact, you could probably look it
I
up.
know he invaded other countries. I don't know those other border countries, but I
Well,
know one of
probably
them was Georgia. believe the other one's
yeah. And then of course
Moldova, I think.
he took over Crimea and all that. But yeah,
Yeah,
things.
so that's probably what he would have done anyway.
Yeah, we'll never know. But we made sure it happened. And once it happened, here's the other thing.
Hello, hello, you're breaking. Hello,
That's
you're breaking up.
entirely
I can't hear you.
possible.
I can't hear you. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
you're breaking up bad.
Oh, yeah, I was in the other room. So if I go back in here, you
So
can hear me?
yeah, so like you said that you don't really know.
Well,
He, I think a parallel comparison compared to what he is, authoritarian. You
I think,
would want to attack democracy and show that it is
no,
bad.
actually, if we had
It's a
done,
battle between democracy and authoritarianism.
no, it's a battle between warmongering, multi-billion uh, military industrial complex
and everybody else. Because yeah, no, I do not think for a minute that Putin would have invaded Ukraine. Let me say this, emphatically. If we had gone for neutrality, okay, that means Ukraine never joined NATO. We don't encroach NATO any further than we have already. And as long as NATO doesn't join NATO, doesn't join the EU or
You're a bit hard to hear there, Lance. If you could get a little closer to your mic.
oh, I'm saying the neutrality saying if we had done neutrality, which was on the table, it had been discussed already before we installed our guy in 2014 in Ukraine. We could have had neutrality. Like I said, it would have meant no NATO, no EU for Ukraine, and it meant if you're going to take Eastern, I think the Donbass region we would have agreed, like Crimea would become kind of controlled by Russia, and more or less that would be it. But we didn't want it because we wanted a perpetual war. And I'll stop
You
there.
know, the thing about it is, I think we should have parallel society, and it's kind of like with monarchy, the threat of American coming to be would have others see it, and that could be a potential bad thing, right? Because it could change how things are, and if you're authoritarian, it would therefore be good if democracy didn't work. It would it, where if it didn't work, you could come to a conclusion that would make sense that people would lean more towards your sphere of influence of an authoritarianism state. And some people do have a viewpoint of being pro authoritarianism. But if you have this elephant in the room of democracy working so wonderful over here, that kind of is a problem for you, right? Whatever it is you're cooking, it's not, people aren't going to want it compared to this other competitor down the street. So you want to do what you got to do to, you know, throw piss in their drink and throw dirt in the, and try to muddy up, to, throw mud in the food and try to dirty up what's over on the other side of the parallel society, that it's not as attractive, it's not as enticing. And regardless of what the West do to Russia, if they're doing something in a comparatively way better approach than an other, that is a big problem, because how are you going to get people to completely be on board in what you're doing? Even if they didn't take anybody into NATO, they'd still, at the end of the day, say, we don't want nothing to fucking do with you. So if you want to rebuild the Russian Empire, people are going to say, you know what? We're going to be fine in staying as we are. We don't want a puppet president or anything to do with you at all, because your society's ass backwards. And I'd rather lean towards this type of society here. I'm not going to join it. Don't worry, because I know you're going to invade my country if I do. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to get back with you. And that's a problem if you have a person who's pro-authoritarianism and they want to rebuild an empire. And I think it's just a battle between democracy and authoritarianism, because it has to be, because one can't exist without the other, because the other contradicts uh, the other. And you'd want to make sure, McDonald's look bad in order for Burger King to succeed, pretty much, because one is competition. But I mean, like, maybe Putin has a point. I mean, like, his views, like with the West, I heard him call it empire of lies, and it's really a bad. All what's bad in the world is really, it really stems from the West. Is I think is where he. I don't really think like he's left or right. I think like he's just playing sides because sometimes he seems like he's on the left and he's on the right many times, and you can see him like uh be with left wing countries and be with authoritarian countries. I think like anything that's not West is what Putin is about. I think he just hates the West, I guess. Oh, Lance left.
Hey, you guys, jump in the caller queue. Come up and speak with Nivek. Couple announcements. This
You're
Sunday.
breaking, or is it me?
It might be me. I've been having this issue with BlueStacks on my computer. Did that fix it, Nivek? Check, check. Did that fix it, Nivek?
You're dropping in and out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, can't hear.
How about now? Is that more clear?
Hello?
Hey, Nivek, can you hear me now? Check, check. 1, 2.
I can't hear you.
That's weird.
Yeah.
He's probably going to go off and then on again. So I'm going to still mute because he was going to say something instead of starting talking again. So I'll just mute and wait and see what happens.
Hey, Lance.
Did everything stop, Nivek?
Okay. You're sounding fine.
What's that?
Hey, Lance, step out. No, you're sounding fine. Hold on. You know what? There's comments here. I'll look at the comments. I totally thought that y'all were waiting for Lance to respond. Never mind. Okay. Yeah, I hear you fine. I'm gonna look at the comments here and trying to. Yeah, I'm looking at the comments. It says, also we make trade-offs. We accept the risk of fossil fuel emission, etc., in order to obtain a benefit. Oh, you stepped out. That's okay. Hold on. Hold on. Uh, yeah, that makes sense. I guess it's relative. No, I just did. It says we make trade-offs. Who's this? It says we make trade-offs. Oh, his name is Chaos. Also, we make trade-offs. We accept the risk of fossil fuel emissions, etc., in order to obtain a benefit. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, like, yeah, like polluting the atmosphere is bad, but you need fossil fuel. Evil requires intent. Was it evil for German Nazis in World War II to kill the Jews? Was it evil for Americans to kill? Okay, kill the Nazis. Okay, that makes sense. God killed all the firstborns who didn't put blood on their doors. Who decides the standard? Okay. Um, I think that it the standard is natural, and people naturally care about their the well-being of themselves, and by doing that, you would based off of that reasoning, you should have a mutual relationship with another, and where what you would want to be what you wouldn't want to be done to you, you shouldn't do it to another. You wouldn't want I mean you wouldn't want to be killed, so you would you shouldn't kill. You shouldn't go around killing others and go about trying to have a mutual relationship between you and others because you care about yourself and you wouldn't want to be done to you. By doing something bad to another, you could do subjectively thinking what is right or wrong. The same can be done to you. You think it's a construct. You think it's subjective. If you think it, if you think it's a construct, you think it's subjective. Cup of cheese. I mean, if you can respond in a comment, that'd be okay. So I can reply to it. Yes, I totally thought. Okay, no response. Yeah, chaos. I mean, cup of cheese and chaos. If you want to respond to my reply in the comments, you can go ahead. Okay,
So, Nivek, at the start of this episode, oh, I'm getting feedback from you.
Okay, I'll turn off my mic.
I think it was you might have the YouTube stream open or something.
Hold on.
Check.
Yeah, hold on.
I'm still hearing.
I'm not sure what that is. I'm,
Check one.
okay, hold on. I'm trying to fix it.
Yep. The disorder of the mind that's driving them. I'm still getting feedback.
Really? Okay. From you, when I mute my mic,
What's that?
I hear feedback coming from you when I mute.
Oh,
When I
okay.
mute, do
I'm
you
just
still
hearing.
hear it?
Oh, oh, now I'm still hearing.
Tell me if you hear it when I mute.
I will mute. Maybe it won't be the same with Lawrence.
Anaheim made a good point. He says, "If no, there's a God, it's in con- if there's a God, it's in control, so all is good. If there isn't a God, matter is simply energy, and energy doesn't have conscience." So I guess that just means that it is what it is. Things just happen. Travis, uh, I'm gonna wrap it up now. Guys,
Yeah, yeah, sounds good.
okay, okay. Guys, take care. Thanks for showing. Have a good day. Bye.